Meeker Craven, who, in their technological brilliance, had already isolated the gene in the aggressive neighbor so as to neuter them and not outright wipe them out, as the Craven had taken pity on them and had hoped to never have to use such a bioweapon on their lesser advanced neighbor. Alas, on the 40th day of the holy month of Caladan, the unthinkable happened. From the subterranean tunnels, the Atari, in their large numbers, simultaneously launched attacks across all the cities of the Craven, with the Atari brandishing their own pulsar weapons and climatization suits. The 7-foot-tall, muscular behemoths made quick work of their 5.9 feet neighbors, who weren't nearly as built as they were in terms of body strength. Billions of Craven fell to the quick offensive of the Atari, leaving the Craven with no other choice but to leave behind their technologies and the virus behind the unsalad dactive, undetectable genetic mutation that effectively hampered the XX chromosome in the Atari and thus the Craven, fled the system entirely to set themselves a new home away from the Atari. However, the events of that day spurred a zeal never before seen in the Craven, a zeal to never again fall to the naivete of their forebears. They plowed resources into their defense systems and budget, and with hateful steel, the once docile and meek Craven became the Craven Republic, the Star Scourge Radani. They tore through the galaxy, crushing the Vaxans, a race of humanoid, human-like beings with the ability of flight and great strength, the more elven-like. Craven stood little chance against such a godly foe. That is, until at the battle.
For the longest time, I've always wanted to create art. I looked outside and saw the world around me is full of wonder and mystery. I thought I could do it, through science. So I took up scientific interests and became a intellectual, and things got really wild and I started thinking about thinking, and that's when I knew that maybe I went too far. And as if the universe was throwing a bone, I took a look at Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. And many scientists will claim that they are well-adjusted individuals. And the only thing they do differently to everyone else is critical thinking. And I think that's not true. I think in a weird way, the comedy of Rick and Morty sort of brought out the hidden truths about the people we call scientists, and the people who call themselves scientists. Essentially, we are all like Rick Sanchez. Like all scientists to a certain degree are like Rick Sanchez. They are problematic, think they're the smartest thing on the planet, and it's strange, but having to decompress from that and really get in touch with what my initial goal was, which was to create art, to create something that inspires feeling, and sort of got me stepping back, and I was like, maybe I can still make art through science, but I have to think about it differently. So I went into it and I started doing programming and so on and so forth. And to a certain extent, it brought me closer to the artwork and art forms that I wished to portray. And then one day, as I was thinking about thinking, a voice spoken into my head and was like, when you're gone, when all of this ends, 500, 300 years from now, how will you be remembered? Did you actually truly exist? Think about a Greek grape farmer. He formed grapes that would make the wines that would fill the cups of the nobles his entire life, but no one remembers him. But everyone remembers the nobles because they did things that made people feel some type of way. You know what I mean? They did things that made people upset, or things that made people happy, or things that inspired people. The great farmer did things that made people drunk, and no one ever thought to be like, hey man, thanks for this great buzz. You know what I mean? No one ever went back for him, so who will go back for you? And I paused and thought to myself, wow, that's really deep. I feel like I'm dissing myself slowly. But then I really started to think, what effect do I leave behind? What have I accomplished in all of this? In the however many millennials I've existed here on this planet, what have I to show for it? And then I was like, maybe the things I'm scared to do, I should start doing them. Maybe that way I might mistakenly leave a mark. A floating piece of rock in space can hit a planet and end a civilization entirely by accident. What if I can be such a rock, but instead of destroying,
Battle of Bunker Hill on planet Vakri, towards the latter days of the Craven-Vaxxan War, the sky split open, and a void-black entity floated from the sky to the top of the hill, and right there at the summit it hovered, just about to touch the blood-stained floor. Both sides stopped their assault to await the first move. This unknown entity, both sides waited for either to command the jet black, 6-foot, well-built, featureless entity, and it stood suspended above the battlefield, with the void whirring from it as the portal it descended from slowly closed. A body of a woman fell through it, and she seemed garbed as royalty, but to none of the factions gathered. A great boom broke the uneasy silence as the strongest Vaxen warrior B lined it, straight for the jet black entity, JBE, the Craven military called it.
Now, face me, interloper. Let your life be a testament to the might of the Vaxen Empire. Die.
No sooner had he roared those words, his lower jaw had been ripped asunder, and his gurgled screams been overshadowed by the sound of his blood gushing like a mighty waterfall. He reached for the fountain of blood that was once his lower jaw, and as he fell to his knees in agony, another boom tore through the battlefield, and the JBE was gone, and a Vaxen transport ship was torn in half, and the resulting explosions had woken the beached Vaxen warriors.